Alright, so hey everyone, today I want to take a look at the Deadzones for BioShock. This is specifically the Xbox One version, the remaster, but this is consistent with the Xbox 360 and original PC versions of the game. This was actually one of the first games that I tried to show on my channel, but this was before I knew how to edit in these Deadzone graphs, so I was using Anti-Micro's stick overlays to try to demonstrate that. But to get into it, this has a camera of about 22% square, and this is a pretty common size, but it is large, so you can see just how much stick movement you can make without anything occurring in game. And being axial, this restricts diagonal movement around the axes, so I can make these vertical bobbing motions, and as long as the stick is under about 22%, I'll be moving perfectly horizontally. You only see diagonal movement occur when you break out of both axial dead zones, or these green regions. And this is a little more obvious when looking straight up or down, and looking for when horizontal movement begins. Of course, this isn't good because this makes it so your cursor angles are incorrect to your stick angles. As far as the acceleration curve, acceleration doesn't start at 0%. It actually starts at about 4%, and that doesn't sound like a lot. But if we compare it to, say, something like a quadratic curve, which is common in many games, that kind of curve, if you move 10% past the dead zone, you get 1% of your total speed. So if you move the stick 10%, you get 1%, whereas here you move just beyond the dead zone and you get 4%. So that's a pretty big difference, and this can make precise adjustments feel quite very sloppy, especially with the dead zone size and the heavily restricted diagonal movement right around the dead zone. So you can just kind of skate over certain enemies that you're trying to line up shots for more easily. Otherwise, the acceleration curve kind of starts fast, but continues kind of slowly and then builds up until about 93% or so, and then ramps up dramatically. I used to think this was just an acceleration jump, but after testing, it is just a steep ramp up. And I can't tell for sure, but it seems like this extra ramp up might have some smoothing attached to it, and I think that because when making direction changes like this, there's a small lull in when turning in the opposite direction, so it seems like there's some buildup. And when making quick circular adjustments, the kind of circles and movements you make seem a little small for something with a maximum turn rate of something like this. Vertical sensitivity seems to be slower than the horizontal, and this may have something to do with this kind of edge ramp up in acceleration being different vertically, but I tested it the 80% vertically and 80% horizontally, which wouldn't have that, and it seemed that at least from those points that the vertical sensitivity was about 70% of the horizontal. And in most games, and what sort of seems to be the case here, is that your diagonal movement is normally affected by or skewed in the direction of the more sensitive axis, so your angular movements will be, in this case, more horizontally biased. It's a little difficult to see for sure if that's occurring here, because other games have more slower vertical sensitivity, but that is very common with different axis sensitivities. the movement dead zone is about 30%, and it actually the axial portion of this dead zone is exactly the same as the camera, so it's about 22%. But then there's a circular dead zone sitting on top to give it this rounded square shape. And movement starts very slow, so the aliasing on the edges of objects might be a little easier to see than the actual movement itself. But to try to demonstrate the angular restriction, if I line myself up right next to this edge of this pillar, you can see that I can make these bobbing motions, which would be pretty dramatic angular changes. And I'm staying perfectly aligned to the edge of this pillar. But if I move into the screen region, you can see that diagonal movement is occurring because it's offsetting from it. So that about covers the dead zones. One of the other things I want to talk about is the radial wheel. So there's actually two of them in this game, one for plasmids, one for weapons, and I'll just focus on the weapon one right now. One of the things where the dead zone does seem to affect this is the range at which the selections can be made. So for the wrench, you can see that this kind of indicates its range. And then if I move to the grenade launcher, you can see that this is the range here. And this actually seems smaller for the diagonal regions and wider for the cardinal direction weapons. So these ones versus the diagonals. And that makes sense because if you divide the stick evenly into 8 spaces, the axial dead zone will actually warp this, so it'll make give you more range for the cardinal regions. I'll try to demonstrate that on screen. So that's really not going to be too noticeable during play because it's not a huge dead zone. With larger dead zones, it would become more obvious. But that's one way the dead zone can affect the wheel. The two things I want to point out is the way this wheel works is you tap the button and you cycle through your weapons, and when you hold it, the wheel appears. So I'm typically not a fan of this just because it forces you to wait to be able to use the wheel. So if I had a weapon and didn't want to cycle through so many weapons to get to the one I wanted, I'd have to wait for the wheel to register. So that's one of my sort of dislikes, but it doesn't matter too much in this game. This isn't, Doom where you're swapping weapons really quickly. Which the thing I have the bigger problem with is that you can see that it says the right stick selects weapons, but actually the left stick can select weapons too, and these can fight with each other. So if you're trying to switch weapons quickly while you're still moving, you could actually get the wrong weapon out. So if I tried to get the shotgun but I was moving left, you can see that I got the machine gun because even though I pressed right on the shotgun, I was moving left and selected the machine gun. And that can happen a lot if you're trying to, like if I tried to select the camera and was moving in the opposite direction like that, I get the crossbow. So you have to be really deliberate with your selection because of that. And when I'm playing, just to be sure, I just kind of stop moving to make sure I don't accidentally get a weapon I don't want. Of course, I don't expect any updates for this game, but I think in these cases it'd be better if you could choose which stick selects the wheel. Either if you want both, that'd be great, but it could be like left stick, right stick, or both, just so that you don't have to have them fight like that. And of course this isn't a big deal at all, just because the game actually pauses when you're using the weapon wheel. And just as far as a personal opinion, I'm not a fan of this. Just I think it just kind of like stutters kind of the gameplay. But certainly when it pauses, you know, this doesn't matter if they're fighting, because you can take as long as you want to select weapons without issue. But anyway, that's enough rambling about the radio wheel for me. So those were the Dead Zones. So thanks for watching, and everyone, have a good rest of your day.